Hi, my name is Aaron and I'm a photographer from Reynard and Vixen. You recently had your first exhibition at Feld & Co, A Night in the Great North. Tell us the most memorable moment had whilst photographing the gigantic New York City. New York City was an interesting place. For me, the most memorable moment of being in that city was just catching up and meeting different locals whilst on the subway. You see the most interesting and unique people just going to work or going to different things. And then at that time, New York Fashion Week was on. And so I got to see a bunch of people dressed up in different ways who were actually modeling for different gigantic companies as well. So for me, my most memorable moment was the subway of New York City. People say they love portrait photography because a face can tell 1,000 stories. However, do you tend to find stories in the walls of your architectural photography? It's a good question. I think for me, places tell different stories to different people. And it could be someone that's been to that place and it reminds them of their own time there, or it could just be a moment for them to relate to something similar. For me, yeah, locations and architectural photography or buildings, they do share their own story. And yeah, I just really hope that people can capture a glimpse of a story or can be reminded of their own stories from that time when that occurred. What was your favorite New York food memory? For me, this one is quite close to heart. I'm going to throw that away now. Oh, okay. But going to Kat's Delicatessen and getting a pastrami on rye was one of my favorite memories. I'm now vegetarian, but at the time I wasn't. And just seeing this, getting this sandwich, which was filled with pastrami, and just having your first bite of it and actually melting in your mouth, that was one of the most unique things I'll ever have to have as a memory to hold. You're in this room and you're sharing this room with like hundreds of people, and on all the walls around you there are different famous characters and different famous celebrities that have been there and had their moment with cats or had their moment with this sandwich that is so delicate and so beautiful. For me, that was my most memorable food moment. I think for me, one of the most memorable, I can't say that it probably is the most memorable, but it does come to mind, was standing and driving through parts of Yellowstone National Park and seeing the first snowfall of America at the time. It was one of the most beautiful sights to see snow actually falling, and it's something I won't ever forget. Yellowstone in itself is so beautiful, but just that different aspect of this white powder falling to the ground was just something so unique and something that I will never ever forget. Where do you notice most of your inspiration comes from? This one's simple. It's got to be from the people. So from different people who have traveled to different locations, or from stories that I've been told, from close friends, or even just friends that I have now met through social networking, such as Instagram. I am able to be inspired on a daily basis. Whether it's having the small chats at things like exhibitions, or just over dinner, or over a glass of wine. I am constantly being inspired by people and their stories. It's one of the reasons why I do also do some portrait photography, but it's something that, I mean, sharing your experiences with people is not going to be, it can be something that's quite vulnerable as well. So I do understand when people come and are like scared to share, but I also love the fact that people are willing to open up about their lives and open up about their stories through photographs or through journalism even. something that is quite unique, and I'm so proud of people when they do actually open up. Next one. Oh, if you had to pick one style of photography for the rest of your life, out of architectural, portrait, or naturescapes, what would it be? I think I'd actually have to go with portraits, because we mentioned that question before about how they tell stories. And for me, the stories of people will always be more significant than the stories of a land or of a particular place, because people are what do make the world go round. And for me, their importance far outshines a place or a location. And I would always like to be able to share someone's story, or share a glimpse into someone's life, whether it be heartbreaking or it be a joyous and proud moment. Stories of people are definitely something that I would love to share. What advice would you give Aaron years ago? What advice would you give Aaron a year ago about following your dreams? Go hard. Go harder than you did. I think for me, there was moments where I was questioning what I was doing and questioning my ability, and I wanted to tell him to just keep pursuing it. Keep having that dream and having that dream close to you, and actually reflecting on it and constantly wanting to chase that. I feel like I could have gone a lot further in 2018 than I did. And looking back at it, it was a successful year, but there's so much more for me, and I wish I could have told myself that a year ago. In 30 years' time, do you still see photography as being a big part of your life? Yes. Photography is, and I strongly believe always will be, a special part of my life. I may have moved on to different things in 30 years' time, but it will always be a special part of my life. I do honestly think that I will always have a camera near or in my hand or close by. It is something that allows me to capture a moment, but also tell a story like we've been talking about throughout this interview. Being part of the creative industry can always be challenging. What do you find has been the most challenging aspect of photography in your experience so far? For me, this one has been being mentally strong the whole time. You are always getting, not criticism, but you're always getting feedback constantly as a creative. Whether it's welcome feedback or not welcome feedback, you're constantly going to be getting it. And yeah, just sometimes your brain can take a hit. And it's such a tough moment when it does happen, because every part of you wants to stop and just run from what you're doing. But when you are truly passionate about something, you can't let those things stop you. And for anybody that is watching this, I do want to encourage you that you got to keep going. Push through any setbacks or any hard times that you may have, and just learn to love what you're doing for the sake of doing it. In all honesty, it's not been an easy road being a creative, and I don't think it ever will be for anybody anywhere. But you got to look at the bigger picture and look at the bigger parts of why you're doing it, and why it's something that you do feel deep down in your heart is the right thing to do. When taking a photo, do you feel like you need to be somewhat immersed in the subject matter? Do you feel like you need to be connected to the place or person that you are photographing in order to get the perfect shot? To a certain extent, I think. I think when you're photographing a person, obviously they have a story to tell, but it depends what you're photographing them for. So if you are photographing them to tell the story, then obviously you have to be able to evoke emotion out of that you want to be told. So say you were documenting a travel journal in, say, India. You would want to be able to capture the emotion of the person and where they live. So say he had been going through a lot of hardship whilst living in a third world nation, you would want to be able to see that in his eyes or in his face. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you're just photographing someone for their portfolio or for a corporate sort of image, you don't need to tell as much a story. It just needs to be that quick moment of capture that then says, hey, I work here, or hey, I'm doing this industry now. In terms of places, I think, I did touch on this before, but I believe places tell different stories to different people. And when you are connected to, when you make your own connection to that place, you can choose to tell that story, but someone else can come along and choose to tell their own story about how that image has come to them or affected them. What is next for Reynard and Vixen? Can you give us a little sneaky peek at what exciting projects you're working on? At the moment, I am trying to plan out what and where I will be going to document next. There is ideas that have been thrown around for East Timor, for Iran or India, and then also for Japan, but I am not 100% sure. I would love to be able to do all of them, and if given the opportunity, I definitely will. And I will share these stories with you as I go on my Instagram if you do follow me. But at the moment there is not much. I'm in a planning phase, and that's okay. You're allowed to be in a planning phase. You don't constantly have to be doing something, but keep an eye out for potentially Iran, India, Japan, or East Timor.